Hey from Chile. Right now, I want to share with you guys a couple of experiences from the past couple of weeks. Because one day we went to Mass in a place where if you came down the hill, just the normal road, there in front of you, all of a sudden you saw it was like built up on like this big rock, and then it was the church with the steeple. Really pretty. Sorry you didn't get a picture of it. And as I walked in and was there at Mass, I started thinking about how in medieval times, churches were built. It was the biggest building at the center of the town and in the highest places, precisely because this steeple and everything would like point up to God. And that's why churches so often were with high ceilings and all, because everything was supposed to speak to us about who God is, our relationship with Him, want to elevate our hearts towards Him. And so I was kind of thinking during Mass, and I was like, does this church produce that same effect today? Because years ago, that totally was the effect that was produced. But today, when somebody sees that church up there, how many people think like, oh, that's where I want to be and that's where I want to go? And how many people think like, ooh, church scandals? So what does the church, the building, speak to us about today? Step 1. Step 2, now I'm in Santiago. That was in the south of Chile. Now I'm in Santiago, and it's really interesting because I'm in a part of the city where it's a very, very high Catholic, active, practicing Catholic community. And yet they don't yet have a church here. They're fundraising, hopefully they get it soon, but they don't have their own parish church here yet. So the parish priest, he's kind of churchless, so he kind of goes to, there's a couple different places where like a school or whatever has a church, and that's where they have their Mass. And they rotate, which works out great for right now. But I was thinking the other day, seeing like every Mass I've been to it here, wherever it's been with this parish priest, it's full. And lots of people fervently living their faith. And so I was like, this is really interesting because maybe today the church building doesn't communicate the same thing to us. But hopefully each one of us communicates that. Because today what people need maybe isn't necessarily to see a church steeple in the middle of them, but yes, to see a person who's a Christian and shows that they're Christian, not so much by their words, but by the way that they relate to each other, by the community that's created. And in that sense, I'd like to invite us, you and myself, both things. One, for us to be that light of Christ in the world, to wherever we're at, the way we speak to each other, the way we deal with each other, the way we live, let that speak about Christ. Let that speak about who He is in our lives. Let that speak about the love we have for each other. And at the same time, when we have a church or community place to go to, even if it's not going to church, even if it's at like my place of community and of living my faith, is when I'm with my family and we say a blessing before eating. Whether it's at the kitchen table, the dining room table, or whether it's at a church, let's fill those places with meaning. Let's give them back what they were meant to signify. Because it's not so important if we've got really beautiful stones to make the church out of. If that church isn't full of the meaning it's supposed to signify. So let's be those living stones. And at the same time, let's fill those places of community, because our faith isn't meant to be lived alone. Our faith is meant to be lived in communion with our brothers and sisters, with our families, in love. That's the invitation for today. Hey from Chile.